This is my house.
Hello there, and I'm back again with this New Year's message on Doctor Who and why you shouldn't be a fan. Now, nobody's exactly sure where the word fan comes from, but the most probable place is that it's a shortened version of the word fanatic, which comes from the Latin word fanaticus, meaning an insane religious person, someone who's mad, over-enthusiastic or inspired by a god. It's a term that referred to religious zealots, and don't make a religion out of Doctor Who, even if the makers seem to quite like the idea and it repeatedly gets creepily messianic. In short, you shouldn't be a fanatic or a stan for Doctor Who. You shouldn't be a fanatic or a stan for anything. I have learned that some people who are fans of Doctor Who will literally say anything to cover for the show. I got one comment in response to my Doctor Who video saying, Jesus Christ, mould harder, it was fine. And also that they didn't see any arguments in my video. And that was in response to my video on the Doctor Who Christmas special, and there definitely were arguments in there. But I think what they said is actually true, because from what they said, I don't think they even watched the video. The latest thing they referenced from my video was a clip of Chris O'Dowd from the IT Crowd, and that was 30 seconds in. So no, you won't see any arguments in the video if you don't watch it. In short, being a fan will make you act like a crazy person. People attack each other every week for wearing the colours of the wrong sports team. Someone else watched this piece of video that I found very camp and said, yes, nothing gayer than men and women dancing in a group together. Well spotted.
Are you serious?
Doctor Who was in a kilt and a vest, twirling like a ballerina. Dude, the only way I can think of making that scene camper is if the new Doctor had each of his hands down two separate blokes' trousers. There are other ways, I guess, but not that I can say on YouTube without getting banned. But all of the ways will probably be in John Barrowman's autobiography one day. How is any of this fine? In several of these new episodes, basic character motivations make no sense. For example, the Goblins go back in time to take Baby Ruby in the Christmas special, and that would destroy their own timeline. If they eat her as a baby, it would screw up their past where they met her as an adult. And Russell T Davies had the same problem in the episode before that, when the Doctor did the exact same thing. His actions, if successful, would have erased his own timeline. It was not fine. I think it's fair to say I've been quite critical of Doctor Who since Russell T Davies' return, and sadly I would describe many of the comments I've received from clearly extremely passionate Doctor Who fans as being on the fanatical side. People have said things, frankly, that I didn't see coming in defence of this show, crazy things, and things that make no sense whatsoever. For example, in recent videos I've discussed some of the wild allegations surrounding the show during Russell T Davies' first period in control of it, and Russell T Davies and his team have come back for the last 4 episodes of the show and maybe several more seasons going forward, and the allegations went up to and including the actor John Barrowman, who played Captain Jack, reportedly exposing his genitals every 5 minutes on set, flashing people, rubbing his penis on Christopher Eccleston, Camille Kaduri and on a car windscreen.
And Russell was there as well, they kind of came over. So.
And Barrowman's there taking his dick out every 5 seconds. Like, you know, every 5 seconds, just hitting it on everything like that. You can't help but laugh. Like, Chris will be like, serious, I'm concentrating on my acting.
All the time.
All the time. Do you remember the time you put it on your shoulder in the makeup truck?
Yes, I do.
I talked about allegations in the press that Noel Clarke had groped a female driver, repeatedly harassed her, and had told a long-haired costume lady that he liked women with long hair because it gave him something to hold on to when he was doing them from behind. Another Doctor Who actor who asked to remain anonymous told The Guardian she was also sexually harassed by Clarke in the early seasons of the show. He made advances on me, she said, regularly asking me if I wanted, quote, a piece of his dark chocolate. And when she rejected his advances, the actor said, Clarke badmouthed her to people in the industry. So basically it sounds like some members of the cast were treating the set of Doctor Who like they're the goblins from Goblin Slayer.
The goblins?
And what did I get in response to that? I got this. Not defending anyone's behaviour, but if the Barrowman stuff has been public since 2009, why the hell do we need to keep making a show of it constantly? Further, it was dealt with by the BBC initially, and then once again was dealt with a few years ago. The Noel Clarke stuff is definitely far worse, and he did try to bring up publicly known info as a diversion. I mean, frankly, this stuff happens constantly. Maybe focus on the review of the show instead of drama from a few years ago. Oh! It was dealt with a few years ago, was it?
Well, that's alright then!
Apart from the people running the show during that time, all just got brought back. Oh, and it happens constantly, does it?
Oh, well, that's alright then!
Not defending anyone's behaviour, but it happens all the time, and it was a long time ago, and I just shouldn't talk about it. And frankly, I find a lot of Russell T Davies's behaviour and public comments to be extremely worrying. There are public comments from him, like this one, in response to being asked why Doctor Who has such a large gay following. He said, "It's a very imaginative act to watch Doctor Who, and I think gay people are better and cleverer and more imaginative than anyone else." And from the way Noel Clarke tells the story, it sounds like Russell T Davies was there when Barrowman was, according to the story, rubbing his penis on Christopher Eccleston. If true, Russell T Davies allowed a member of his community to go far beyond the bounds of anything that is remotely appropriate behaviour. And if it has been common knowledge since 2009, that makes this picture of Russell T Davies and John Barrowman from an award show in 2019 really quite awkward now, doesn't it? In one interview I read, Davies recalled a time when a homophobe at a wedding confronted him for allowing Captain Jack to kiss the Doctor in Doctor Who, saying, "I literally verbally attacked her until I drove her out of the wedding. I wasn't going to stand for it. I wasn't going to stand there and apologise. I wasn't going to listen to her rubbish. I literally told her that her children should be taken into care because she was an unfit mother, and she left. She left the wedding." And the interviewer then says, "In this moment, I was briefly overwhelmed by that rare and wonderful sense of validation you get when your hero is exactly the person you'd always hoped them to be. Come to my wedding," I gushed before I could stop myself. And I can't help but feel, reading that story, that the villain of it may not be who Russell T Davies and the interviewer think it is. It depends on exactly what the woman said, I suppose. Can you imagine a group of people standing around at a wedding, and this woman says, "I didn't like that Jack kissed the Doctor," and in return, she gets verbally abused for 5 minutes until she feels so uncomfortable that she leaves the wedding altogether. Davies has expressed publicly his desire to use Doctor Who as a megaphone to increase acceptance for his community by targeted propaganda aimed at children.
Like as you were saying, if you grow up seeing this stuff, homophobia and transphobia happens when it's something you've never seen before. You can temper that reaction and change it if you introduce these images to people happily and normally and calmly when they're young.
And this came to mind.
We'll convert your children. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it.
And that does not tend to be a thing that's done by the good guys. If you want to increase acceptance for your community, have you considered not acting like a total creep? This may be why acceptance is going down, not up, because you're being really creepy. Both this and the Barrowman thing raise concerns for me about his ideas on consent, because the children are consenting to your propaganda about as much as Eccleston appears to have been consenting to Barrowman supposedly rubbing his bits on him.
You're not comfortable with your sexuality?
Oh, I'm very comfortable with my sexuality. I just don't want to be slapped in the face with their sexuality.
When criticising the show, I get comments like this. "Another right-wing grifter. Great." Just going right for that ad hominems. Not any of the arguments I made, no counter-arguments, just tried to put the other person in a tidy box and then dismiss the arguments out of hand. I got another from someone whose username was Doctor Who Mania, saying, "Nothing wrong with the episode. Also that, it's not really that hard to follow, to be honest, and it's a sci-fi show where stuff doesn't always make sense." And that was for the Christmas special. And which one is it? Is it easy to understand, or does it not have to make any sense? Because in the Christmas special, when the Doctor says his sonic screwdriver doesn't work on wooden ropes, it only works on screws, that's a problem, because 3 episodes before this, it worked on a wall with no screws in it. And here is David Tennant's doctor using the screwdriver to undo ropes, so now what?
I like the toga.
Thank you. And the ropes.
Yeah, not so much.
What magic is this?
Some of the things the show has done have kind of broken the universe, but it's fine apparently. It doesn't even have to make sense. Or how about this one? Oh lordy, another insecure man review with the standard disapproving sarcasm and persistent misogyny. And someone else chimed in to agree, saying preach, and that's an interesting and telling choice of words, isn't it? And this would be in response to a line in a video of mine where when the character Donna Noble insulted the Doctor for his age and weight, I said in his place I would have been tempted to do the same back to her. That was supposed to be the persistent misogyny, I think, in this person's view. The concept of equality is misogynistic in some people's view now. I got accused of hiding misogyny behind an overly literal concept of equality. Thinking that men and women should have equal treatment is a, quote, overly literal concept of equality. I'll let that sink in. Men and women being treated equally is a form of equality that is over literal. Instead, this person seems to think that equality should mean inequality. This person seems to think that women should be free to be abusive, insulting and demeaning to men, but if men dare to do it back, that's punching down. Russell T Davies seems to think it's fine to be abusive and insulting to a woman for disliking his writing, but I don't see it as punching down, because in order to believe that, I would have to see women as being fundamentally beneath me. And I don't. At least not unless she asks very nicely or buys me dinner first. I may even let her be above me for a little while if she's been very good. But it's a collectivist mindset that doesn't even really work and never has. It's like if you had the Queen of England when she was still alive walking down a street and she sees a homeless man begging for money in a shop doorway and she looks and thinks, there but by the grace of God, how lucky that person is that he was born a man. He really should give us some of his money out of his begging cup for the historical injustices men have committed against women. There's a quote attributed to Winston Churchill saying a fanatic is one who can't change his mind and won't change the subject. And maybe someone could ask, well, isn't that you? People made comments to you and you didn't change the subject or change your mind. But I don't have to change my mind if your arguments are bad and don't make any sense. Or you don't bother to make any arguments at all. So why do people get so attached to Doctor Who and defend it like a religion? Well, partly it's what being a fan does to a person. You lose the ability to think critically about what you're watching. And if you attach your identity to a person or a TV show that you're a fan of, an attack on that person or TV show feels like an attack on you and your identity. The star you're a fan of becomes an unimpeachable icon. And it's the politics as well, because you may have missed the politics in Doctor Who up to now. It's been so subtle after all. So again, an attack on the show becomes an attack on people's politics. And worryingly, people have started to treat politics like a team sport or a religion. Right and wrong stop mattering. Values stop mattering as long as your side wins. So as a New Year's resolution, can we all please try not to be fanatics? Your identity doesn't depend on some programme or some celebrity. You don't need it. You're enough just being you. Just be you and try to make yourselves better.
I can't block out, please lock out images of Johnny B getting his out. I can't do it. I can't do it tonight.
Fuck. Jesus. Never rub another man's rhubarb.